The 2024 season was a very interesting one for the Green Bay Packers. There were many areas where the team massively improved from 2023, such as the defense in general and the running game behind Josh Jacobs. But other areas felt that they either stayed the same or even regressed. The special teams unit was still a mess at times, the offense was inconsistent, and sometimes the play calling by Matt LaFleur was suspect. But this team still showed a ton of promise for the future as they were yet again the youngest roster in all of football for the second straight year, finishing with 2 more years than last year as well. They may have fallen short in the playoffs, losing in the wild card round to the eventual NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles, but there is a ton to talk about with this team. Most of it is positive. So we're going to grade each of the players on this team that had some sort of impact on the Packers season, starting with the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. The grading is as follows. A is for a player that had a fantastic season, way exceeding expectations or making the All-Pro team. B is for players that had really good seasons, exceeding expectations. C is for players that had an average season or met expectations. D is for players that had a disappointing season. And F is for players that actively hurt the team every time that they were out there. Playoff performance will have an impact on grades here. So let's start out with the starting quarterback of your Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love. Jordan, what an interesting season it was for you. He got off to a decent start in the slippery turf of the real game against the Eagles, but he got knocked out of the game on the second to last play with a knee injury that turned out to be an MCL sprain. That play basically changed the entire season for Jordan, as many people could tell that he never fully recovered from the MCL sprain. Love ended up missing the next 2 games with that injury and came back week 4 against the Vikings, where he had some struggles in the first half where he threw 3 interceptions, but also had 4 touchdowns in the second half as the Packers failed to come back against that game. He then had a pretty solid stretch of the game where he was that gunslinger that we knew from late last season, as he threw 9 touchdowns but did have 4 interceptions in those wins. But the game against Jacksonville was another one where he left early with an injury. This time it was a groin pull. And after that game and after the bye week, the gunslinging, heck it, there is someone down there type quarterback was replaced by a very conservative Jordan Love, who didn't put the ball in harm's way. From weeks 11 through 17, Jordan had 10 touchdown passes to only 1 interception, but the offense has some very, very bad struggles, getting off to some bad starts and having some struggles without having those big explosive plays that we were having when Jordan was just throwing the ball around. In the Packers' last regular season game against the Bears, Jordan left the game early due to having an elbow injury that knocked him out, but was healthy in time for the Packers' playoff game against the Eagles. But he and the offense did not have the best game, as Love really struggled, throwing 3 interceptions in the Packers' loss. Overall for his season, Jordan Love appeared in 15 games, starting in all 15 of them, having 3,389 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a completion percentage of 63.1%, a passer rating of 96.7, and a QBR of 69.2. PFF gave him an overall grade of 77.7, a passing grade of 76.6, a rushing grade of 54.6, while also crediting him with 20 big-time throws and 13 turnover-worthy plays. For his 2024 season, I'm going to have to give Jordan a grade of B-, as his season was basically the perfect middle ground between his 2 halves of 2023. He was still a very solid quarterback, a top 12 quarterback in my opinion when he was healthy, but he wasn't healthy the whole year, and I personally believe that he never fully recovered from both the MCL sprain and the groin pull. There was a very clear difference in play before the groin injury and after, where Jordan was more afraid to trust his arms and make those wow plays that he can do. His playoff performance was also not great, but I think a full offseason recovery from that injury would be great from Jordan, and I do believe that he can be the quarterback to lead the Packers to the promised land. Malik Willis wasn't on any Packers fans' radars heading into the season. I mean, he was added to the roster via a trade just a few days before the regular season for a 7th round pick, for goodness sakes. But that little move right before the season just so happened to have saved the Packers' entire year. As with the many injuries that starting quarterback Jordan Love has sustained, Willis ended up playing a lot more than anyone expected, and he was excellent in that role, winning both games that he started and also winning the Jaguars game for us when Jordan went out with that groin injury. That game against his old team, the Titans, was a particularly memorable, as Willis, as well as Matt LaFleur, had the game of their lives. Willis had over 270 combined yards through the air and ground with 2 touchdowns, willing the Packers to a dominant 30-14 win. He also had a clutch touchdown in a very close matchup against the Jaguars. No lie, Without Willis stepping up and leading this offense to those 3 victories, the Packers would not have made the playoffs at all. Overall in 2024, Willis appeared in 7 games, starting in 2 of them, having 550 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, a completion percentage of 74.1%, a passer rating of 124.8, and a QBR of 79.6. He also contributed 138 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. PFF gave him an overall grade of 70.3, a passing grade of 65.3, and a rushing grade of 71.2. They also credited him with 2 big-time throws and 1 turnover-worthy play. For his 2024 season, I'm going to give Willis a grade of A+, as he came in late in the Packers offseason and was just fantastic for us. He showed a lot more development than he ever did in Tennessee, and his confidence, along with the great game plan by Matt LaFleur, led the Packers to 3 wins. 3 wins that this team desperately needed to get into the playoffs. Getting all of that in exchange for a 7th-round pick was a great trade by Gutekunst, our GM. I would imagine that if Jordan goes down again next season, we will be in good hands with Malik as our backup quarterback. There were a ton of expectations for Dontayvion Wicks heading into the season, especially after a really good rookie campaign where he had a fantastic second half, with many metrics pointing him for a breakout season in 2024. But he had a disappointing season compared to those lofty expectations that were placed on him in the offseason, even though he did still have a pretty solid sophomore campaign as the Packers' 4th wide receiver for the majority of the season. The main issue with the Wicks this season was the drops. As compared to his 2023 season where he only had 2 drops, Wicks increased his drops to 8, with all of them coming over short routes where he shined in the previous season with really high grades from PFF. Overall in 2024, Wicks appeared in 17 games, starting in 5 of them, having 39 receptions on 76 targets, 415 yards, 5 touchdowns, a catch percentage of 51.5%, a yard per reception of 10.6, and a passer rating while targeted of 80.6. PFF gave him an overall grade of 65.3, a receiving grade of 63.9, and a blocking grade of 71.2. For his 2024 season, I'm going to give Wicks a grade of C, as it really was disappointing from what we expected from him. I mean, people were predicting a Davante Adams type breakout for him, which honestly was a bit crazy, but that was the expectation that some had. That didn't quite happen, as the drops were of constant cause of concern throughout the season, as him and Jordan just weren't on the same page the majority of the time. He was still fantastic in some areas, as his separation was still among the best in the league. I still think there's a ton of untapped potential with Wicks, as his ceiling can still be high. But his floor does make him a solid supporting cast member as the 4th wide receiver on this Packers depth chart, and I expect to have some similar production from him next season. It was definitely an interesting season for Christian Watson, as many expected him to take a massive step forward to be the clear-cut number 1 receiver for the Packers. He didn't quite do that, but the impact that Watson had on this offense was undeniable. It was his best season as a deep ball threat, as he was the one Packer we can rely on to stretch the field and help get other guys open. He in fact finished 2nd in the NFL in yards per catch with an insane 21.4 yards per reception. His big playability really helped set this offense in great field position and helped the offense run well, as there was a massive drop-off in efficiency when Watson was off the season. And sadly, like the other 2 seasons, Watson ended up missing games this year. It started off with him being on a snap count due to having a knee injury, and ended up missing a couple of games this season due to that same knee. But the absolute worst case scenario happened, as in the last game of the season against the Bears, Watson went down on a non-contact injury that ended up being an ACL tear. That injury put him out for the Packers playoff game and will keep him out for the majority of the 2025 season as well. Overall for his 2024, Watson appeared in 15 games, starting in all 15 of them, having 29 receptions on 53 targets, having 620 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and a catch percentage of 54.7%. PFF gave him a grade of 69.1 for his overall grade and a 71.3 for his receiving grade. For his 2024 season, I'm going to give Watson a grade of C+, as he had his best year of being a deep ball threat for his offense, even without being a touchdown scorer that we are used to. But there are times where he disappeared in the offense, and injuries limited his effectiveness for the majority of the season. Then the big ACL tear happened in the last game of the season, and it just sucks that 2025 is his contract year, and that he will miss the majority of it being injured. It just absolutely sucks, and it's going to be harder to replace him in this offense. The Packers' leading receiver from the past 2 seasons looked like that he would have a massive breakout season after the first 5 games. Reed had over 400 yards and 2 touchdowns, and him and Jordan Love looked like they had some great chemistry. But as the year went on, it seemed like the chemistry kind of just disappeared, and it seemed like a hassle to get Reed just involved in this offense. In the last 13 games of the season, Reed had 6 games where he had 2 or fewer receptions. That is not how the offense is meant to be run. Reed was also very confusing in terms of how efficient he was as well. According to PFF, Reed had 10 drops, which was really, really high and was very concerning as he had only 3 in all of 2023. But he was also first in the league in passer rating when targeted, having an absurd passer rating of 137.5 when he was targeted by either Jordan Love or Malik Willis. Overall, for his 2024 season, Reed appeared in all 17 games, starting in 10 of them, having 55 receptions on 75 targets, 857 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, a catch percentage of 77.3%. He also contributed 163 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown as well. PFF gave him an overall grade of 70.4, a receiving grade of 70.1, and a rushing grade of 63.5. For his 2024 season, I'm giving Reed a grade of B, as he was the best receiver that the Packers had this year, but the thing that held him back from getting a higher grade was that he really didn't improve from his excellent rookie season. The Packers needed one of these guys to take that lead to be a clear number 1 receiver, and Reed was one of the guys we expected to potentially take that leap. But he didn't, as drop issues and some consistency getting involved in his offense held him back. But Reed was, again, really solid for the Packers, and if the Packers go out and get a number 1 guy, Reed is going to be a hell of a number 2 wide receiver. Bo Melton had a bit of a disappointing season for the Packers, as with all the injuries to Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs that happened this year, you would have expected that Melton would have gotten himself a bit more involved in this offense. But he didn't make that much of an impact. Even though he appeared in all 17 games for the Packers, Melton only registered 8 catches for 91 yards. For his 2024 season, I'm giving Melton a grade of D, as he couldn't make much of an impact on this team, even though there were plenty of opportunities for him to do so. It'll be interesting to see if Melton remains with the Packers heading into next season, especially after free agency and the draft, as the Packers are expected to make some changes to this wide receiver room. Another receiver similar to Bo Melton was mainly around as a depth piece for the Packers. Heath showed a bit more promise than Melton and was very useful in being one of the best blocking wide receivers in the league and especially on the Packers. Heath also got a lot more playing time later in the season, especially against the Bears and the Eagles when Watson, Doubs, and Reed went down with injuries. There are some flashes of potential in those games by Heath, but also some frustrating drops against the Eagles where he, late in the game, dropped a pass that could have converted a critical 4th down for the Packers in the playoff game. Heath appeared in 13 games for the Packers, starting in one of them, having 10 receptions on 13 targets for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also had a yard per reception of 9.7 and a passer rating when targeted of 139.9. For his 2024 season, I'm giving Heath a grade of C-, as he did show a bit more potential than Bo Melton in the receiving game, and was a heck of a blocking wide receiver in this dominant run offense for the Packers. I would imagine that he would be on this roster again next season due to his incredible blocking skills. Very impressive season for an undrafted wide receiver, and he has the love of the coaching staff as well. So, good job, Malik. We were looking for a guy on this team to take a leap into stardom, and one of the candidates to take that leap was Romeo Doubs. Doubs had a very solid season in 2023 where he had really developed his chemistry with Jordan Love and was incredible in the end zone with 8 touchdowns. But 2024 was definitely a step back for Romeo, as inconsistency, injuries, and a suspension derailed any chance he had to get consistent growth within this offense. Doubs struggled with concussions, getting at least 2 this season that led him to both wearing a Guardian cap and being knocked out of the wild card round against the Eagles. He also got suspended for a game earlier in the season against the Cardinals because he failed to show up to practice after being frustrated with his usage in the offense early in the season. Both him and the team figured out what was going on and got it figured out, and Doubs was good to go for the remainder of the season besides the injuries. Overall in 2024, Doubs appeared in 13 games, starting in 12 of them, having 46 receptions on 72 targets, 601 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. He also had 5 drops, a yard per reception of 13.1, and a passer rating when targeted of 99.8. PFF gave him an overall grade of 70 and a receiving grade of 71.4. For his 2024 season, I'm going to give Doubs a grade of C+, as he had a bit of a disappointing season. It was basically a worse version of his 2023 season, as he appeared in less games due to injuries and suspension, and had worse numbers because of that. I am really concerned with the amount of concussions that Doubs suffered this year, and that his injury history, like Christian Watson, can prevent him from becoming a better receiver, as his chemistry with Jordan can be really good at times, especially in the end zone. But I need him to get healthy for him to reach his potential, and I am just worried that he won't be able to do so. Sims had another very solid season being the blocking tight end for the Packers. That was his primary role for the team, as he only had 4 catches for 42 yards his entire season. PFF actually listed him as having a worse season in run blocking, with his run blocking grade going down from 58.2 to a 52.8. But his pass blocking skills grew significantly, with it increasing from 68.7 in 2023 to a 75.5 in 2024. For his season, I'm giving Sims a grade of C, as he performed his role in his offense as a blocking tight end just about as well as you could have expected from him. I would imagine that he will be back next season, as his coaching staff seems to love him and his ability to block for this offense. The sophomore season for Luke Musgrave didn't go as well as we thought it would. The injuries just piled up for him, with the biggest one being an ankle injury that he suffered during the Week 4 matchup against the Vikings. It turned out to be a torn ligament that knocked him out for 11 weeks, with him coming back against the Saints in Week 16. But it was a very limited role for him, as they didn't want to rush him back too fast with that ankle. Overall, for his 2024 season, Musgrave appeared in 7 games, starting in 3 of them, having 7 catches for 45 yards, having a yard per reception of 6.4, and a passer rating when targeted of 47.9. For his season, I'm going to give Musgrave a grade of D, as he spent most of the year on the injured list, and when he was on the field, he just wasn't that effective on there at all. But he still had a ton of potential, and if the big guy can just stay healthy and just stay on his feet, him and Tucker Kraft can be a very dangerous tight end duo for the Packers. What a breakout season it was for the second-year tight end out of South Dakota State. With the injury to Luke Musgrave and inconsistencies with the other receivers, that led to Tucker Kraft being Jordan's safety blanket and one of the best receivers on the team. He was one of the team psychos, guys you just had to give the ball to and make defenders get out of the way, along with Josh Jacobs being the other main psycho of the offense. Kraft was also developed as a secret weapon for the Packers offense, particularly on 4th and 1, where we have Kraft take the ball and have our own version of the tush push. The one thing you can critique about Kraft's game is that he didn't really improve all that much as a blocker, as his PFF grades didn't improve that much for run blocking and actually decreased in pass blocking. But overall, for his 2024 season, Kraft appeared in 17 games, starting in all 17 of them, having 50 receptions on 70 targets with 707 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, a catch percentage of 71.4%, a yard per reception of 14.1, which is second most among all tight ends, and a passer rating when targeted of 134.6, fifth among all tight ends. PFF gave him an overall grade of 68.0, which is really low in my opinion, a receiving grade of 71.5, and a run blocking grade of 55.2. For his 2024 season, I'm going to give Kraft a grade of B+, as he had just about as good of a season as you could have asked for. After his strong finish to 2023, Kraft took advantage of the opportunity he had and claimed the number 1 tight end spot for the Green Bay Packers. He ran with a fury when he had the ball in his hand and was a great weapon for Jordan Love. I look forward to him continuing to improve and be an integral part of this offense for years to come. I will not be surprised if he becomes a top 5 tight end in the near future. Brought in when Luke Musgrave went down with his ankle injury, Fitzpatrick was exclusively used as a blocking tight end, as he only had 1 reception for 2 yards in the 9 games he was with the team. PFF gave him a run blocking grade of 60.7. For his season, I'm going to give him a grade of C, as did exactly what the Packers expected out of him. But I doubt he will be on the roster next season, as I think the Packers will want to upgrade their 3rd tight end spot on the roster. Well, that is all for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below of what grades you think are too high, too low, opinions on these players' future. Next video, we're going to be doing the running backs and offensive line. So stick around for that one. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.